Step 1. Buy yourself a fork seal driver kit. This one's 35mm to 50mm. Step 2. Remove the fork from the bike. I usually get 4 cans of brake cleaner, and I'll spray this down and get all the dirt off before I take it apart. Then I'll take the dust cap off of the fork, use a pocket knife, prise right out. There's a snap ring underneath that, holds the seal in place. I'll remove that. Using the taper of my pocket knife, I find out works best. There's a clip. Remove the big screw. Let all the air out of the fork if there is any. And turn your suspension setting to its softest. Then you loosen the cap. Comes down. Strain the fluid. There's a nut underneath the cap. Mine's a 17 mil. You have to hold that so you can remove the top. Remove the cap and the spring. We'll have to tip it upside down to finish draining the fluid. And down the center is a tube, a needle, and a spring. Make sure you don't lose them. To get by the special holding tool that they want you to get, I'll take the spring, put it back in the tube, I'll flip the tube over, and I'll put my weight on the tube so the spring holds that center cap in place. Take an impact gun and it'll come right out. Take the bottom off. Careful not to ruin the O-rings. You should probably just order them, because I typically ruin them anyway. And you're ready to take the seal out. I usually put 1 foot on the bottom. Try to hold the bottom of the fork. And with 2 hands, I'll bring it up and use it as a slide hammer. Just keep doing that as hard as I can, and the seal will pop out. That's what it looks like after you pop it out. There's the seal, some washers, your bushings, the inner 2 bushings. I'm not going to do the bushings. They don't look too bad, but typically where you can see the discoloration where it's gray here, and then you can almost see the brass coming through, they're kind of borderline. If you have the money or just peace of mind, they're worth replacing. Everything was removed and cleaned. Now we're going to assemble. You have to watch when you put it back together. On the inside of the brass, you see that groove in the top? That's for your snap ring. So you have to make sure you have enough room, have the seal all the way down, and be able to get that snap ring in. So when you put it all back together, you can see that washer covers up that groove. So you need to take your fork driver and beat that top bushing back into its slot. The driver seated that inner bushing. There's enough room for the seal and the clip to aid in installing the seal without ruining it. You're supposed to cover everything in fork oil. I just use WD, works just as good for me. But I take a hardware bag, put it over the top of the fork tube, I spray the bag down with WD-40, and it helps to slide over the bag and you don't come across all the ridges in the top of the fork here. Helps to aid in not ruining it while installing it. Seal installed. The groove for the clip ring is exposed. For installing that pesky bottom cap, use the same method. Put the spring back in so I can sit my fat butt on it to hold that in place, and instead of using an impact gun, I use my 3/8 electric ratchet. It's lower torque, less chance of me screwing something up because it's fine thread and it's aluminum, so you have to be careful. Install the needle, spring first. Then a tube. And now we have to bleed. Each of my forks calls for 24 ounces of fluid, so just have this mixing cup. Makes life easy. Put as much fluid in as will fit. Grab the center tube and you slowly pick it up, doing full strokes. And if I wasn't holding the phone, put a flashlight in there and you just keep doing that until all the air bubbles are out. Usually like 10 to 15 tries. If you do it too fast, that inner tube just comes out at you and it'll make a mess. Fork is bled. Install your spring. Install your cap. You're going to slide the tube up, screw the cap into the outer tube, and you have yourself a done fork.